In this video, I'm going to answer this question of, do I need to file Form 2553 or file Form 8832 with the IRS to change my default tax classification for my business? All right, so if it's your first time watching, my name is Navi Miraj. I am a CPA who helps entrepreneurs save thousands of dollars in taxes by creating content here on social media, as well as through a course that I have created. You can find out more details about that course on my website, which is navimirajcpa.com. But let's jump into the topic of this video, which form should you be filing? But before I sort of jump, right into answering that question, I want you to understand a few things. The first thing I want you to understand is that there are differences between legal entity types and tax classifications, okay? So the legal entity types, I've drawn on my iPad here, the various entity types that you could create. We have sole proprietor, single member LLC, multi-member LLC, and corporation. There are some others, but these are the main ones that your small business is typically asking questions about, okay? There are also tax classifications, and these are different than the legal entity type, right? So the tax classifications here are sole proprietorship, S corporation, partnership, and C corporation, all right? Now, the legal entity types, those are actually formed at the state level, not at the federal level. So you typically would go to your state's Secretary of State website to form any of the entities that you see here across the top of my iPad. Now, as a quick side note, I should kind of mention, you don't file forms with the state to operate as a sole proprietorship, okay? So you're not completing any forms to operate that way. You could just go out and start performing your business. But what you could do is file a DBA, which is doing business as, or your state might call it a trade name, assumed name, fictitious name. There's, various states call it different things, but those documents will say, hey, state of Florida, for example, my name is John Doe, and instead of doing business as John Doe, I want to do business as John's Supreme Landscaping, for example. All right, so that's what that form's kind of used for. Now, let me sort of explain what I mean by default tax classification. So, at this point, you've gone to your state, and that's where you formed your entity. Well, now, how is that entity taxed? Okay, that's what the black arrows kind of signify here on my screen. So this is the default tax classification. So all you do is, if all you do is form these entities at the state level and you fill out no other documents at the federal level, this is how they will be taxed, okay? So the sole proprietorship by default is taxed as a sole proprietorship, and there's no way around that. That's the only way it can be taxed. The single member LLC is by default taxed as a sole proprietorship. So if you form that single member LLC with the state, and there's only one member, perhaps that's yourself, then you're going to be taxed as a sole prop. If you form a multi-member LLC, that means you went into business with yourself and someone else, then by default, it will be taxed as a partnership, okay? And if you filed a corporation at your state level, then by default, it will be taxed as a C corporation, okay? But you can change that. You can make a tax election. All right. Now, if you want to elect to have your entity taxed differently than the default way, typically, again, you're doing that at the federal level, meaning you're filing paperwork with the IRS, not your state. The question is, which form? Is it Form 2553 or 8832? Okay. So you've established that you're not happy with the default tax classification. You may want to elect to have your business taxed as an S corporation, for example. If you want to do this, then you would be filing Form 2553 to have your single member LLC, multi-member LLC, or corporation taxed as an S corporation, okay? So that's what the red arrows here represent, okay? The single member LLC has a red arrow saying that, hey, you can elect to have it taxed as an S corporation. The multi-member LLC can be taxed as an S corporation as well. And the corporation, that sort of Inc., if you will, can be taxed as an S corporation as well. But what if you don't want to be taxed as an S corporation? Well, then you can complete Form 8832, and you can have your single member LLC or multi-member LLC taxed as a C corporation. Or you can even use Form 8832 to have your C corporation taxed as a partnership, all right? That's what the yellow lines signify. You can see there's a yellow line from single member LLC to corporation and multi-member LLC to corporation, as well as from corporation to partnership. Now, I want you to be aware that there are other legal entity types. I think I mentioned that at the top of the video that I didn't put on here, but because these are the most common ones that I get questions about. There are also different reasons to use Form 8832, for example. You may use Form 8832 to have your single member LLC, which you previously elected to be taxed as an S corporation, and you want to revoke that S corporation and switch it back to being taxed as a sole proprietorship. You could do that by completing Form 8832. But this video was mainly for new business owners to understand the differences between, legal entity type, tax classification, and which form that business entity could file with the IRS to have their entity taxed as an S corporation or perhaps even a C corporation or partnership, okay? Now, in my opinion, I would not be completing Form 2553 on your own without first consulting with a tax professional, and I would absolutely not file Form 8832 on your own without completely understanding the consequences of what you're doing, okay? And if you're consulting with someone about this and the person you're asking questions of can't explain what I just covered here, you need to find someone else, all right? So if you'd like to learn more about the actual tax differences between a sole proprietorship, an S corporation, and a partnership, then visit my YouTube channel and go find the video called Tax Differences Explained. That's a great video to help you understand the tax impact of these various tax classifications. For example, in that video, I take you through an example of if a business makes 100 grand in profit, what taxes can it expect to pay if it's taxed as a sole proprietorship, an S corporation, or a partnership. Specifically, we get into the details of Social Security tax, Medicare tax, federal income tax, and state income tax, okay? So that's all I wanted to cover today in this video. With that said, I'll see you either in the course, again, you can check that out at navimuradcpa.com, or I'll see you on the next video here on social media.